So we're going to get into Genesis 4 now. So, verse 1. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Now, just to understand some symbolism here, who is a keeper of sheep in the New Testament?
Jesus.
Jesus is the great shepherd, so Abel's going to be a type of Christ. Cain was a tiller of the ground. Now, there's really nothing wrong with that, but that it's highlighting, what's important to them, and it's going to be, having more meaning here in a moment. Verse 3, and in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. So first off, in verse 3 it says, in the process of time. So there was an appointed time probably that they had to come and do this offering. So a lot of people wonder, why do the people do what they do in Genesis? Because they don't have a law covenant like Israel did. But there's still sacrifices, and there's still other things that they do, even though it isn't recorded that they had a law covenant. But they do have some instructions that they follow. They're just not recorded in Genesis. Of course, Israel's going to understand them because they've been given those instructions in a written form. So I don't know when they had to do a sacrifice, but they had to. It might have been once a year or once a month or once a week. I don't know.
Those instructions, you think it might be given by, they were given to, what's the name? The guy with the boat?
No, they were given to Adam. Noah isn't even alive yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Adam's going to be told what to do. Remember, God killed animals to give them skins. So he probably was teaching them right then and there. Now, it says that the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but not unto Cain. So how do they end up knowing that?
Knowing the sacrifice?
No, knowing that the Lord respected one and not the other.
I really don't know.
So there are a few passages in the Old Testament where fire would come down from heaven. And, like lightning,
Consume
the offering, yes. And so, boy, mine got zapped. Yours didn't. So they're going to know, and guess what? Cain's going to be pretty embarrassed. His pride's going to well up inside of him. Yeah, because remember what we read last time, that the ground was cursed. And so they have to work hard. So Cain has probably worked very hard to produce, I call it the fruit salad. And of course, he'll probably say, Abel, you didn't have to work very hard. All you had to do was kill one of those animals. But he does have to tend to them and keep them fed and so forth. So anyway, God respects Abel's offering, but not Cain's. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. Verse 6, and the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? So they still has interaction with God here. And I'm going to continue to emphasize the Lord has a form. He looks like a man, and he's walking among them. As far as we know, there's only 4 people here, but it could be that they had some daughters that aren't recorded. I'm not sure there are any other sons yet, but Adam and Eve are going to have quite a few children before they die. Verse 7, if thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So, what does God say what does he have to do in order to be accepted?
Read the words again.
Well, it just says he needs to do well. So to do well, that probably means something.
Do what Abel did?
Right, you got to bring the right offering. You got to do the things I tell you to do. If you do the things I tell you to do, you will do well. If you disobey and you're rebellious, you won't do well. So if you don't do well, sin lieth at the door. Sin is going to consume you. And it says, unto thee shall be his desire. That meaning sin's desire is to have you and control you. And thou shalt rule over him. We read the same thing about woman. She's going to want to usurp the husband's authority, but the husband has to rule over her. So when someone of higher authority must rule over those of lower authority, and sometimes it requires some work. All right? So God tells him what to do. He's not willing to do it. Now notice, God doesn't just zap people for their disobedience. We will see some times in the Old Testament where someone touches the ark, the guy dies. So there's lots of times when people are disobedient, but God's not just killing everyone. There's reasons when he does do it. All right, verse 8. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. Now, we certainly don't know what they talked about, but you got to imagine they're talking about what happened.
Yeah, most likely, yes.
And so, of course, Cain's going to get angry. Hopefully Abel wasn't rubbing it in his face, but he probably just tells him, well, all you need to do is do the right thing. Don't you tell me what to do. Isn't that what people do?
Right.
Verse 9, and the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? I'm sorry, he rose up against his brother and slew him. I think I read that. Verse 9, and the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper?
Like a God didn't know what happened.
Right, and I imagine God might have said, well, you're the older brother, you are his keeper. But he's not seeing it that way. And
he just wanted him to confess what he did.
Right. And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. Now, if you go into the New Testament, Jesus talks about the blood of the prophets has been shed since Abel unto, and he names a prophet late in the Old Testament called Zechariah. And so their blood crieth from the ground. What it is, it's a witness. All right. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. So it was already hard enough to work the ground for Adam, well, for everyone. But now God says the ground's not going to bring forth anything for you. So you're real proud about your fruit salad? Make another one. Now, I don't know if he won't bring up anything from the earth, but it's going to be even harder.
He says thistles.
Well, that happened back with Adam, thistles and thorns. But they had to work hard to produce something, and now I have a feeling it's probably going to be more than Cain wants to work. Now, God says you'll be a fugitive and a vagabond. What's a vagabond?
Somebody that's roaming around without nowhere to go.
Right. There's no place called home. And usually,
Fugitive and a vagabond.
Yeah, usually a fugitive is someone that's fleeing for some reason.
From something.
Huh?
Fugitive is somebody's running from something.
Yeah. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. What has it been? 10 minutes? And you already can't handle it? I don't know. Maybe this went on for a bit of time before he said that. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. That's why he's a fugitive. Now, he is being driven away from God's presence, where God was residing. Now, it doesn't mean that God can't visit him somewhere else, but evidently he feels that I won't be able to, interact with you. And my comment will be, well, you weren't thinking much of that when you didn't do what he said, right? Don't want to bring him the right sacrifice, but you do want to hang around God. And that's people's attitude. I want to be with God. I just don't want to do what I want to do.
Well, I don't want to do anything that I'm supposed to do.
Right. I don't want to be told what to do. I want to do what I want to do, but I want to be with you, God.
So I know some people that that you tell them, hey, God bless you, how you doing? Are you praying for this, or that? They tell me yes, but I know different.
That's what they call lip service. People just say, I'm praying for you.
They just say that to deceive you, I guess.
Well, they're not trying to. It's a convenience excuse. So when someone asks you to pray for them, you should do it right there. When someone says, you pray for me, okay, let's do it right now. And show them that you mean it. Am I going to pray for somebody every day? Probably not. Their life goes on. I'm not going to have someone in my prayers every day.
I don't know the person, and it's the first or second time that I encounter him. Yes, I'm praying for somebody. But somebody that I know, they're in my prayers already every day. 'Cause I pray every day.
But I don't tell people I pray for them every day because I don't. When people say I pray for you every day, I go, well, that's fine. I hope you're able to keep that.
Well, I do pray for you every day.
Okay, all right, well, thanks. It become a long list if you tell too many people that. So,
It's something that I don't know, but God called me to do, and I do it.
all right, let's get back to this. So he's worried that people are going to find him and slay him. Who are you worried about? There's only 4 of you, but of course,
There's more people.
yeah, he's an adult. I'm going to figure at this point because he's bringing his own sacrifice. If he's underage, Adam's bringing it for him. So I'm thinking he's probably at least 20, and so he has younger brothers and sisters.
And his mother and father died when they were almost 1,000 years. I guess.
Well, right.
How many kids did you have? 1,000. You did 1,000. A whole bunch of them.
Well, but I guess the question is, how many eggs does Eve have in her body? And I don't know enough about how that works. And a woman today, she'll eventually reach an age where she doesn't have any more. But it could be that back then they had more. And of course, most women will, pass an unfertilized egg, and maybe she's getting every one of them fertilized. So the potential for a huge number of children is there, but we don't know.
How many children? Forgot his name, but he had 12. I think it was 12 or 13. 13. One got killed. So, one of the was it Abraham?
Well, we know that Jacob had 12 sons and he had one daughter,
Yeah.
so he has at least 13. But there's records in the scripture of someone having like 35 sons or maybe 70 sons.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if they're all from one woman.
Some of the Gentiles.
Now, Jacob had 12 sons and one daughter, but with 4 wives, 2 wives and 2 concubines. So it's a lot of work for a woman to have a lot of children on her own. All right. Anyway, back to this, verse 15. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. Now the question is, what is this mark? And we're not going to know. But a mark is usually put on someone to protect them. And I think the Antichrist is going to promise that as well. You take the mark, you can buy and sell, and I'll take care of you. But God says, don't take that mark in the end times. Verse 16, And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. So typically when you go east of Eden or east of Canaan, you're going from the presence of God, and it's a bad thing. You want to be coming from the east, not going to the east. Verse 17, And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. So the next question you have is, he's got a son named Enoch. He's built a city. Who's living in the city? Okay, so obviously there are more people on the earth than we understand. And probably he builds the city later in life when he's had children, and maybe even some of his children have had children. And then he's going to name it after Enoch. All right. Now, Enoch's an important name in the lineage of Christ, but this Enoch is not it. It's not the one.
Okay, why Enoch?
Well, we'll see when we get to the next chapter. Verse 18, And unto Enoch was born Irad, And Irad begat Mehujael, and Mehujael begat Methusael, and Methusael begat Lamech. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. So are they supposed to have 2 wives?
No.
No. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle.
But hold on a minute, 1 minute. At that time, still the 10 Commandments were not around, and they didn't know that it was wrong to have 2 wives.
I'll say that's not correct. How do they know to do sacrifices? How do they know what? Noah's going to know what's clean and unclean. He's going to take so many of the clean animals and so many of unclean animals. They know all this stuff. They just don't have a written record of it.
They probably knew about having 2 or more than 1 wife or something.
You're supposed to have 1 wife. I'm sure God made that clear at the beginning. God's not going to tell the people, go out and don't sin, but I'm not going to tell you what right and wrong is. He's going to tell them.
But you're not saying nowhere. Well, I guess they knew. Let's say that they knew because there's no record.
They did know. Remember, Moses is writing this 2,500 years after it happened. That's the first written account you have of anything. The book of Job is a little bit earlier, so you have the book of Job. But we don't know what God told these people other than what Moses wrote down afterward.
Yeah, then how do they know that it was? Why do you say
God told them. It's real easy.
It was okay.
God's walking around among them. Do you think he's just walking around not talking to them?
Yeah, but he's walking around Cain and Abel and all those people.
Well, at the beginning there's Adam and Eve. That's it.
Into when he was. Oh, you saying that he might have told Adam and Eve?
I'll say no. There's no might about it. He would have told Adam and Eve, "Here's how you're going to live after they've sinned. Here's what you're going to do."
Well, what I'm saying, he said that it was wrong. Well, at that time, they didn't have.
Well, when does something become wrong later? Now, you're correct. There are some examples. They're eventually told you can't marry a near relative,
Yes.
but that's in the time of Moses. But see, in the beginning, you don't have a choice. Who did Cain and Abel marry? Who did Cain marry? Because Abel got killed. He has to marry his sister. There's nobody else.
Right.
Okay? So there's a reason why that is outlawed later, but it was okay earlier on. But there's no reason why a man and a woman are supposed to become one flesh. Well, you're not going to do that very well if you've got multiple wives. There's no way that would have been okay, but there are plenty of people in the Bible that did it. Abraham, David. That doesn't make it right. The Bible highlights that men do wrong things.
Gentiles, they did it.
Yeah. So here, see, God's recorded. Here's what the people that are far away from me end up doing. This guy takes 2 wives. That's one of the things we're going to learn here. So he's already getting off course. Now, Cain murdered somebody, and he was close to God, we'll say. But having been driven away, they're going to go and do their own way. All right, let's go back and read this. So, verse 20 again. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor in every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 and 7-fold. Now, we don't know who he killed, but he says, I've slain a man to my wounding. When I killed him, it hurt me. And a young man to my hurt. I think it's one of his children, but I don't know that. It doesn't tell us. And because he's killed someone, Maybe it's somebody else in the city, and because I killed that maybe young boy, someone's going to come get me. So it could be that. So it might not be his own child. I've slain a man in my wounding. This is going to come back to get me. This is going to hurt me. I've killed a young man. So we don't know who it is. But what he's looking for is vengeance. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. So the Christ people are supposed to be forgiving. Cain's generation wants vengeance. Verse 25, and Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God said, she hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord. Now, who calls on the name of the Lord?
The generation of Enoch.
Well, no, what kinds of people? Saved or unsaved?
Saved.
Only saved people call on the name of the Lord. You got to get saved first. Now, what do they have to do to get saved back then? I don't know. But they have something that they believe in. And for those that do, they're calling on the name of the Lord. Okay? You don't call on the name of the Lord to be saved. How do you call on a God you don't know? Now, they should know God. They're not very many generations from the fall. We're talking about Adam, Seth, and Enos. But we're going to find that a couple hundred years has gone by. So a couple hundred years, things can be forgotten. Now let me back up to why do we have the genealogy of Cain in here? And I don't have a good answer. Usually you have a genealogy of Christ, going up to Christ. But here I think what God is highlighting, 7 generations from Adam, Cain's descendants seek vengeance. And we're going to see 7 generations from Adam down the godly line, what that person's like. We're going to get to that in the next chapter. So if you count up the names here, I think you get to 7 generations of these people. So they also are making musical instruments. They're making things with brass and iron. Now people want to teach, the people that lived before the flood were cavemen. Well, no. They're probably wiser than we are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they don't have computers and airplanes, but they're going to build things. And because they live almost 1,000 years, they're going to remember stuff. We have to learn from our previous generation before it passes away. And of course, with books and so forth, people think they're real smart today. But people are really dumb today. They have computers to help them. But, these people get quite advanced. Now, just how advanced are they? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to build a boat and maybe even make some kind of, I'll say a glider, because I'm not sure they would have an engine. But they're not cavemen that are evolving, but that's what people want to think. All right, so that's all we got here.